things that we've you know working a lot on, but this idea of we want to know the thing about the thing. It's the metadata landscape. I want to understand everything around the data. The data is important, and I can analyze the data to actually create better understandings about that data. Screwing up. So, all right. So metadata. We want to talk about the thing about the thing. So what we can see with metadata is first, there's data values physically. You go to the database, you go to the mainframe, go to Hadoop, and there's data values living there. And so what we really want to do is to better understand how this thing lives inside the organization. And so that's where metadata comes into play. The thing about the thing. And so there's all kinds of aspects of metadata we want to understand. The meaning and purpose of it, the context, i.e. what use cases, analysis, or operational. We want to understand process, what business processes interact with and touch certain columns or even subsets of values. We want to understand risk and quality. And at some point, we want to understand the logic of it. So is this data element related to that data element? And so having metadata around this helps us to look at the thing. So this is like one layer removed from the object, the thing about the thing. So back to this pain question, how do we provide feedback? Pain, your sensory mechanisms in your body, just a way of providing feedback. This pain's hot. How do we provide feedback to the organization? So one of the things I propose to you, and you've been implementing these tactics forever, so your perspective would be good to hear. But if you've got this sort of construct where we have this layer where we can ask things about how does it logically fit into the ecosystem, from a context and business model perspective, meaning and purpose, how does it fit into the ecosystem? Context, process, and use cases, and analytics, and demand patterns, how does it fit into those? And risk, is it risky data, is it sensitive, or is it of poor quality, high quality, what is it? If you've got this layer here, what that enables you to do is to kick out numbers. We're all data scientists at the end of the day. Well, I mean, those of us that work in the space, this is really just another data set that needs to analyzed.
Even people that report still need data to come out.
Yeah.
I report and it's very static, but they still do reporting. They still need data out. And they need to make sure it's accurate, it's controlled, they know where it's coming from.
They need all these things.
Whether they're doing insight analytics or they're doing static reporting, you still need something out.
And so what this enables us to do is to take each of these categories of metadata and to score them. And so to create data intelligence scores. And what's interesting about a score, so we'll just create a little chart here. We're trending that score over time, is that the next layer comes into play. So this score is valuable about this data, and we're deriving that score by doing various kinds of metadata analytics around that data. The only last layer is how do you get the feedback loop to the person? Well, we know that. We know that this individual, whom we will call Sally, has a consumer relationship with this data. She uses it. She uses it in her model. She runs financial reporting. She does cash flow analysis at the end of every 30-day period.
That's right.
And so Sally, because she has a relationship to this data, by default, has a relationship to that score. And so the feedback loop opportunity is associating data intelligence scores to the people of which their data they have relationships to. And so as a chief data officer, what that gives you the ability to do is to score everybody and their brother, Sally included, and the various data intelligence scores to which they own or have relationships to. And you know as an executive, Sally's good, Johnny's good, Bobby failed, and Tom is not doing well. That creates gamification, and it creates a model that you can build incentives and performance around. And so what thoughts do you have on that approach to drive a little bit of pain and feedback?
So it creates pain, right? I think this is critical anyway, because as we get into the Hadoop world, data is dropped constantly, and there's different documents, and it's all unstructured. And so it could be overwhelming for the next analyst to come in to where do you go to get data and what's right. The scorecard kind of guides them based on a ranking system of how this person's data that they dropped in Hadoop is controlled from a risk point of view, because highly financial institutions
Right.
that's regulated. Still needs to be controlled. You just can't fat finger Excel spreadsheets, unfortunately, because auditors hate that. So how is it controlled? How's the quality? And they can drill into seeing this, which is important. And I think that creates pain for people who dump data. So if I'm just dumping data in Hadoop, well, guess what? You just can't randomly dump data. Your requirement to get in is to be part of explaining and ranking it. And then as users use it, now this becomes more and more the source of truth. Now I'm analyst C coming in. I need to grab investment data. I look at the scorecard. I see that Sally actually does investment analysis and her ratings are high because of how it's used and her usability and stuff. I'm going to use her data. Now guess what? Her data maybe go to financial reporting. Mine goes to analytics. It's actually the same data, but in architecturally speaking, it could come from different pockets. It's just how it's used. So now we're actually creating a true layer of truth versus a database layer of truth.
Which is, that's a hot word with me. Like
Yeah,
we
'cause I
have
hate
lived
that
this. We want one source of truth, and the goal is to put it all in one big physical bucket.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
going to put it all in a landing zone. We're going to put it all in a warehouse.
Yep. And think about the ranking system too. So this is not uncommon in our day and age today. Rotten Tomato, that's a ranking system. You like movies or not? Let's vote on it. So people are very comfortable with the execution of this kind of activity. It's to get the pain then is if you want to play, you got to pay. And this
So
is the pay.
it's creating really a democratized ecosystem.
Yep.
It's not just a system. This isn't a thing that will live on its own once you put it in place. It's a flywheel. Get it moving, it'll start moving. This creates a model and an ecosystem where people are incented to put data in, take data out, put data in, take data out, grow it, grow the data, as long as your form of monetization, so your form of currency is metadata.
Yep.
As long as you're contributing
You pay
to the model.
through metadata. That's the currency.
And so go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, but I think certain people might say, "Oh, this sounds like data governance or master data management." Why isn't that what this is? This sounds like it's a little bit different.
So the only people that really use master data management or data governance are IT folks. And it's not. I'm not going to riff on IT folks, okay? Because they have a particular job and a function in this ecosystem as well, okay? It's but when you talk to executives, they don't see it that way. They don't see that. If I went to 90% of the executives I know and talk about master data management, they think I'm full of shit and that I'm making up words. And data governance is just another key word for
Even
executives.
more abstract version of that.
It is.
From a European standpoint, then, where does, in the context of what you're talking about here of moving data and accessing information, where does GDPR?
So I'll get into that, but I want to nail his question.
That's right.
Because to me, that's you're focused on the thing. It's MDM, master data management, metadata management, data governance, data quality. All of those are just tasks that we're going to do on the data, right? For master data, we're going to consolidate customer record, 4 versions of Ryan into a single master record, and we're going to keep that in a centralized.
That's a technical solution, by the way.
It's just a set of tasks.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
some things we're going to. It's the thing, and so metadata. It's what we were going to dock. It's things we're going to do. GDPR is a regulatory body or a regulation that's come out that's going to cause us to do a bunch of tasks, right? With tasks like being able to document and inventory what data you have on your customers, so that if they want to be forgotten, they can be, right? Those are all tasks. What we're describing is we're not arguing with the tasks. It's like mom and apple pie. Hey, CEO, Fortune 50 company, don't you think you should be doing data governance? Well, of course. We should absolutely be doing data governance. A European company, don't you think you should be complying with GDPR? We should absolutely be complying with regulation. How? That's where the wheels fall off the wagon, is when you ask the question, how? Because these companies are so big, they're massive, and their redundancy is getting out of control. And so how do you take a bunch of people and move them, and like thousands of people, and move them to this new thing, whatever this thing is, GDPR, metadata master data management, they're all components of the machine, right? This is what Bob and I this is why we're so focused on this data intelligence concept, because it's the gamified mechanism that you can put people into and allow them to operate within, so that you can point them at anything. GDPR, master data management, whatever the efforts are needed, because of the history that we've had, and we've built all this mainframe and RDBMS over 20 years, how do you maneuver a body of people through that mess is really the thing. That's the pain. We need a pain indicator. So that's my response. And GDPR is another version of it. There's going to be two phases of that. There's going to be the big push of compliance, and everybody's going to manhandle that thing into place. What I'm seeing in a lot of the organizations I'm working with is they're manhandling and they're getting there, but they have no idea what they're going to do on day two. On how do you keep all that up to date? How do you systematize it? How do you automate it? Because that's going to eat your lunch if you don't figure out how to live into that regulation and reduce the cost of that.
So my question then is, in the world of MDM and the world of data governance today, and those are, their strategy revolved around those. Now, I think you talk to 4 different data governance people or 4 different master data management, and I say that you're going to get 4 different answers.
4 different
a
answers.
little bit, It's kind of like you ask an actuary how to solve a problem. You ask 4 actuaries, you get 5 answers. I think you're going to have the same thing. And so, is that today the way that it exists in its current ecosystem, making the change that needs to take place to manage this risk? And I'm going to have to say no, because why are we even here talking about this? And the customers that you see still have the same problems. You could probably go into the next
20
company,
years later.
tell them what use cases they have before you even analyze it.
We see that a lot.
So, but they know what data governance is, and they know that IT wants to create a central repository of customer or policy or whatnot. And so people understand that conceptually, and people invest in so much tools. The tools are going to solve that problem, but tools are not going to solve the problem. This is not a tool, really, technically. This is a strategy.
It's a management mechanism.
Yeah. Not that this is, this is just a strategy to make a little bit more pain. So when the data does grow exponentially, which that's where we are now, not every company's into this, but they will. This is going to be, much more the norm. This creates the pain or whatnot to minimize the event of catastrophe. We got to shrink that a little bit. I actually, as a CDO, I'm really nervous about how easy it is to actually get breached and your data stolen, because I don't know where all the sensitive data is. I don't know where all my customer data is. Most companies don't. Allstate, I guarantee they don't know where their customer data is when you have 11,000
Pick
data
any
stores.
big insurer. I think
That's
they're
right.
all going to be,
because things get spun up. People
so
create
big.
apps on their desktop. People can spin up a dupe in the cloud very easily. And so, as a risk officer, how do you know? It's scary. It's still scary. This minimizes that, but it's still scary. And I think that's issues that we need to think through
Yeah,
from
so
that perspective.
we'll cover some of that in the later chapters for sure. But I want to recap. We've gone through some big concepts. This sets up the story that we're working through.
Yeah.
And this gives us a little context about how we got here. How did we get in this mess that we're in today? And where there's mess, there's also significant opportunity, which we both believe in.
That's right.
But just to recap,
Yeah, come on through.
we realize that historically there have been natural barriers that have forced us to manage data better that we moved away from. Practices that we moved away from that allow us to speed up operations and to do things faster and more nimbly and to grow. But with that, there needs to be a balance. And we're trying to figure out, how do you enforce that balance, the pain, the feedback loop on the organization and the ecosystem in order to manage this spiraling growth pattern that we're moving to, and also to manage the investment thesis of how data is growing and how that supports or hinders the business model. And so where you and I landed is that really you need a data accounting system that allows you to wrap your data with a layer of metadata, or like a chart of accounts.
Yep.
So that you can associate account balances and account activities to the individuals of the organization that are either using it, consuming it, managing it, or creating it. And once you have that accounting system in place and a way to really score and create data intelligence scores, you can stack rank, create a gamified ecosystem, make it transparent and open, and start putting performance requirements around each of the individuals. And so that's a recap of kind of where you and I see the world.
Let me drill down on chart of accounts, because we're going to be able to splice and dice this all over the place. I actually love that. We should actually stop calling it metadata and call it chart of accounts. Because what it's doing is, do you implement financial reporting and ledger without a chart? No, because now you're just looking at a number with debits and credits, and it means nothing. The chart is what drills it down and gives it meaning.
Gives it context.
So,
Yeah.
so this is the chart accounts of data, because it gives it context. Why would we have data without that chart? Because then when you do, I'm querying the ledger without the chart. I have no idea. I'm making up numbers. And there's no way I will tell you what our financials are, the income and the expenses. With the chart, now I can start bucketing it, and I can start drilling and get the insight. This is the exact same way.
So what you're describing is basically in our current world, because we don't have this feedback loop, It's like we've got a general ledger and we have no chart of accounts.
Yeah, that's exactly what it
And
is.
so a company that had that scenario would be bankrupt.
Think about, okay, so what's the ledger then? The ledger's Hadoop, Hadoop's files. So now we have this one
just a
number
physical
of
thing.
crap with a debit and a credit, and it means nothing because it's dumped, unless you put it there. This defines it, same way. I love it. Let's call it chart of accounts.
Cool. Well, I think this wraps up this section, and I think we'll go on to the next section.